Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic. And today's comic is Action Comics, issue number 593, dated October 1987. This is one of the more memorable issues from John Byrne's rebooting of Superman, because there's a lot of subtext going on in this story. And basically, that subtext involves a running feud that John Byrne had with both Jack Kirby and Steve Gerber at the time. And I'll kind of talk about what I know of that feud. This is definitely an issue that was aimed at those two. And both of them come off pretty badly in this issue. I think John Byrne was being really kind of mean-spirited here because part of what Byrne did was he used the character of Big Barda, who he knew was based on Jack Kirby's wife, and kind of put her in an unflattering light. So that kind of seemed like, as much as he may be feuding with the husband, he kind of dragged the wife into this. We see Mr. Miracle, who I'm assuming is the avatar for Jack Kirby. So Mr. Miracle in this issue is fairly useless. He's shocked to see his wife. He's being carried off by a group of homeless people. And knowing John Byrne's attitude, I'm assuming that these homeless people are probably comic book fans. Because as we know, John Byrne does not like comic book fans. And he's carrying away, kind of like that old man Jack Kirby. And this is John Byrne's time to shine. So I think that's kind of one way of looking at this cover. So I'm going to go into the story. We don't have a traditional splash page. We kind of see Mr. Miracle, or at least his glove. He's trying to open up this sophisticated lock. And apparently he does have a time limit. Otherwise, there would be a large explosion. However, that doesn't happen. Mr. Miracle opens the door. It turns out that it's actually to his home. So I guess this is sort of a similar trope that you would see in, say, Get Smart, or you would see in those old Pink Panther movies, where the protagonist kind of would create this artificial danger at home just to kind of keep themselves, keep their skills sharp. And we see Mr. Miracle and his sidekick, Byrne. They're walking in. They're expecting to see Big Barda. But instead, they're greeted to Darkseid, and this is one of the images of Darkseid's couch, and not the podcast, but Darkseid actually sitting on someone's furniture in their home. Darkseid kind of has kind of an unusual philosophy. How people would say that a person's home is their castle. Darkseid's more like, every person's home is my castle. And Darkseid, he'll kind of just, he'll sit himself on the best piece of furniture you have. And he's not judgmental in what the piece of furniture looks like, or the condition, or, whether it came from IKEA or Macy's. He doesn't care about that stuff. As long as he knows that it's your best. And he'll go through your refrigerator, and whatever you have that's your best, he will take for himself. So, see Darkseid here. He's kind of enjoying this moment. Can you imagine this guy farting through this cushion? And that, like, when he took something out of the refrigerator, he made sure that no one else could use it after him.
I even pissed in the punch bowl.
So this guy is not a good guest. However, he's being very cryptic when he answers to Mr. Miracle that, his wife, Big Barda, isn't home. Byrne is obviously concerned about this development. This is sort of like if Reed Richards, came home and he walked into the living room and he saw Dr. Doom, sitting on his couch. So anyway, Mr. Miracle, he's obviously upset at this. One, this is his greatest foe. And two, he apparently has some knowledge of what's going on with Big Barda. So he's understandably pretty angry at Darkseid at this moment. However, Darkseid says that he's innocent, at least directly, of anything involving Big Barda. However, he's making it clear that some of the things that she's going through is because of him. So he's kind of taking, he's taking his credit there. Orban, who's not afraid of anyone, he's there kind of lashing out on Darkseid's knee, wanting to know, just give us a straight answer, Stoneface. Darkseid, he finds the little guy amusing, so hey, he's just basically saying, listen, as long as you're breathing, you're making me laugh. And the moment that laughter stops, your breathing will stop. It turns out that Darkseid, however, has a videotape. So, he does have an appreciation for old media. And, of course, Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, when they come home from a busy day of superheroing, they kind of they enjoy going to Blockbuster and kind of renting a movie. So it's good to know that, there are people on Apokolips who do appreciate the popular media that Earth was producing at the time. However, Mr. Miracle is warning his friend that this could be a trap, even though he's still going to go ahead and play this video. Then we see the videos playing. We don't see actually what's going on in the video, although from the running dialogue that we get from Orban, who's kind of giving his stream of consciousness about what's going on, and the facial reactions. This is again a nice little artistic technique by John Byrne. Orban at first he notices the production values, saying, this lighting is really bad, and I'm not feeling these camera angles. And then Orban notices that it looks like it was shot in a sewer, so he's not particularly happy with the use of locations. And then he notices that Barda is on the tape. And Orban is mentioning that she appears to be, using some very heavy makeup. And he's not particularly happy. Mr. Miracle looks like he just took a dump when he saw that scene that Orban's talking about. Then apparently they're both shocked at what's going on. So we at this point, it's sort of hinted at about what this tape is, but we don't know specifically. Darkseid informs the two that he has agents on Earth whose job is to sort of look out and acquire, kind of tapes like this. So it's a little strange that Darkseid has agents running around Earth kind of looking for his porn tapes. And it turns out that that Darkseid his agents had come across this tape in a small shop, and a shop that specializes in this type of fare. And it turns out the shop is located at Hobbs Lane, which is sort of near a part of Metropolis that's known as Suicide Slum. I don't know whether Suicide Slum existed prior to John Byrne. I'm kind of thinking that this place was created in Metropolis to sort of give at least some grit to some of the backgrounds that Superman might be entering. I know that Metropolis had, quote, Little Africa. We learned that in an issue of Lois Lane. But I don't know whether Suicide Slum was something that John Byrne created. And Mr. Miracle, he's kind of like giving some expository dialogue to the reader, saying that this is a very dangerous place. And he wants to know why Barda is there, because, he kind of doesn't sound right here. Darkseid tells Mr. Miracle he needs to calm down and he needs to listen to him. And basically what was going on, the tape that they watched was a porn tape. And apparently from what we learned from the story, it was a solo one. So at least John Byrne spared, Roz Kirby, the indignity of say, doing a gangbang, like with the Smurfs.
Smurfette fucks all the other Smurfs. Why do you think Papa Smurf made her? It's because all the other Smurfs were getting too horny.
No, not Vanity. I heard he was a homosexual.
Okay, well, you know what? Then she fucks them while Vanity watches, okay?
Or what about Papa Smurf? I mean, he must get into the action.
Yeah, what he does, he films the gangbang. Later on, he beats off to the tape.
But instead, it was a solo. It was a solo thing, which in itself is very distasteful. But nevertheless, this is how deep that feud or that beef between the three of them got. I'll talk about it right now. From what I understand, it went down to comic creators' rights. And in the mid-'80s, both Jack Kirby and Steve Gerber, they had issues with Marvel in terms of creator rights. Jack Kirby for a lot of the work that he had done in the 60s, and he felt that he wasn't credited as a creator for much of this. And Steve Gerber's issues with Marvel, I think, went down to the ownership of Howard the Duck. And I'm not quite sure what type of tack he was taking, but he was claiming creators' rights and that he was the sole owner of Howard the Duck, and he was just kind of licensing the character to Marvel. I think that was sort of the point of view he was coming from. But anyway, as these two lawsuits that have nothing to do with John Byrne were going on, John Byrne was a very outspoken guy, and he wasn't afraid to stick his nose wherever he wanted. And he had a very dim view of comic creators who would kind of make claims to sort of ownership, because John Byrne was a self-described company man. And he was definitely a very privileged employee during his comic book tenure, because he was usually the top paid guy in the office because of his abilities. He was a great artist, and he was a really good storyteller. But I think John Byrne would sometimes forget that there are guys who maybe are less talented, or they don't get paid as much, or they kind of look at things at a different point of view. They're not in his station, I should say. So anyway, Byrne, I think, had made some public statements about the two of them and how he thought that their legal actions was basically BS in his eyes. And then Gerber and Kirby, who were working on a book called Destroyer Duck, which is basically Steve Gerber ranting about, his experiences working with Howard the Duck at Marvel. Anyway, the comic existed to fund a lawsuit, and the two of them created a character called Cogburn. And Cogburn was based on John Byrne, because John Byrne had once stated that he views himself as a cog in the company. And obviously the Byrne part was from his actual name. And Cogburn was a man without a spine, or a detachable spine. So that's sort of what Kirby and Gerber were trying to get across their opinions of John Byrne. And this is kind of John Byrne kind of pushing back against this. So we could see how he's treating Jack Kirby. Now we're going to see his analog for Steve Gerber. And here there's kind of a stereotypical, kind of like a sleazy operation here. It turns out that it's a small porn company. It's called Grossman Pictures. And it turns out they have issues paying their debts and stuff. And the character who runs it, Grossman, he looks like Al Milgrom. At least what Al Milgrom would have looked like in 1987. I think Al Milgrom was one of DC's top editors. So, I mean, technically, this guy could say that he was John Byrne's boss, although John Byrne was giving a lot of independent leeway. So I don't know whether Al Milgrom felt the same way about Kirby and Gerber as Byrne did, or whether this is sort of a slop to his boss, kind of putting him in here. So anyway, he's running this porn company, producing the tapes that Darkseid had procured. We see a character come in. He's a small green troll. His name is Sleaze. I'm assuming this is the analog to Steve Gerber. And it turns out that Big Barda tape, the solo tape of Big Barda, was a huge success. So Grossman is really enjoying the fact that he's going to make a lot of money off this. However, Sleaze reminds him, hey, this is not I, this is we. We're going to make this money, right? And immediately Grossman kind of backs away because he realizes that this Sleaze is a tough customer here. Also, the Al Milgrom analog is using the phrase K as in okay, kind of like Mr. Mackey.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mackey. Okay.
That's okay. Just don't let it happen again.
We won't let it happen again, Mr. Mackey. Okay?
So I don't know whether that's something Al Milgrom did. And it turns out that Sleaze has another superpowered being who's kind of interested in being in porn. And it turns out that it's Superman. So then Grossman immediately sees Superman. He freaks out. He knows that his business isn't wholesome enough for the Man of Steel. Even though, he's called the Man of Steel. So anyway, Grossman is immediately grabbed by Superman. Superman has him in his grip. He's not going anywhere. Grossman doesn't understand why Sleaze brought Superman here, given how unsavory his business is. However, Sleaze assures Grossman that Superman is completely under his control. And he's going to have a little bit of a demonstration here to show that, Sleaze has control over Superman. And what he does, he picks up Grossman's desk and he smashes it as kind of a way of showing, listen, this is how I can control him to this degree. Again, this is a little subtext here. Since Sleaze is the analog for Steve Gerber, we're going to take Superman as the analog for Howard the Duck. And Steve Gerber here, in John Byrne's eyes, he's bragging about he has control of this character. So this is, again, a little bit of a shot at Steve Gerber and kind of like, kind of John Byrne kind of calling him out for, being so presumptuous as to assume that you have control over these characters. Because, it's a company, man, John Byrne, the company has control of the characters. Then we turn the page. Grossman, he sees his desk all messed up. However, Sleaze is like, hey, don't worry about this. With this guy, you'll be buying, hundreds of desks, from all the money you're going to make. However, Grossman, he does see the possibilities of using Superman in his films. He's saying, listen, this guy has huge branding. He's a really good-looking guy. He's muscular. Guys are going to want to see this guy, in action. Women are going to want to see this guy in action. So he's saying, listen, this might be a good thing. Grossman is asking Sleaze how he has control over him. However, Sleaze doesn't want to talk about that. He wants to gloss over this. Again, this is, John Byrne saying, Steve Gerber, how do you control these characters? How do you own Howard the Duck? How do you control him? And it's kind of like, Steve here is kind of just punting, saying, it's an unimportant detail, but trust me, I control them. So again, there's a lot of that subtext going on. However, Grossman is concerned. And the reason for his concern is this. The Big Barda tape was a solo tape. So that was sort of, Big Barda kind of like stimulating herself, solo. And Grossman's concerned, hey, such a tape like that with Superman, there's a limited market to that. And no matter how much people might want to see it, they're not going to be happy just seeing Superman yank it solo. So I don't know what to do here. But it turns out that Sleaze has an answer. He says, listen, I got a partner for him. I got a partner for him that can really take it, and it won't be a problem. And it's Big Barda. So basically, this is Superman and Big Barda are like making a porn tape. Of course, as we know, Big Barda is based on the wife of Jack Kirby. So this beef went pretty deep here. Okay, keep going. I don't see anything particularly memorable about the ads here. So anyway, we see Mr. Miracle, and he arrives at Suicide Slum. And Mr. Miracle, who comes from Apocalypse, which is basically, the whole planet is Suicide Slum. He's even impressed with Suicide Slum here. He's saying that, it's just a horrible black hole. And it just proves, for example, like Superman, Metropolis has Superman, and he can't do shit against crack. So that tells you how bad the crack epidemic was back then. Superman can't do shit about it. So anyway, Mr. Miracle, he's looking for Big Barda, his wife, understandably, since Darkseid had let him know that, at the very least, that you'll find her in this area. And then we see kind of a retelling of the origin of Mr. Miracle. I mean, it's John Byrne, so it's done fairly well. Of course, they don't make any citations to the Jack Kirby, original comics. I guess this is John Byrne saying that, you know what, you don't need to read those. My retelling will be the definitive one. Don't worry about the original shit. And we see the origin of Scott Free and how he escaped Apocalypse. This is, if you've ever read these, and I recommend that you do, these are very Star Wars in terms of the spirit. And definitely George Lucas had read those comics, like The Forever People and Mr. Miracle and The New Gods. Okay, so what's going on with the origin of Mr. Miracle? I guess this is just really kind of filler for the story, because there's not much going on. Also, this is, again, a way of John Byrne kind of sticking it to Kirby, saying, listen, I can retell your stories, but better. So anyway, Mr. Miracle, he lands at a particular place. I don't know why that he picked this area, this specific area, to land, but I guess he figures he has to kind of do a more thorough search. Mr. Miracle, he does have a mother box, which is sort of, which is, I guess, AI at the time, and the mother box assists Mr. Miracle in what's going on. It's kind of like an angel who watches over you, an AI angel. And immediately, Mr. Miracle is grabbed from behind by, we'll say, a homeless crack addict. And the way they're drawn, they look it. Although they look more like meth heads that you would see in Breaking Bad. Now, apparently, these addicts are very territorial. They want to make sure no gentrification happens in this neighborhood. So they immediately knock out Mr. Miracle. They throw him into a potato sack. Then they have chains. So they chain the potato sack. Forgive my pronunciations. They're going to throw him into the dumpster. They have to be careful here because that could be someone's home or bed. So anyway, they throw him into the dumpster. Then they have a welding torch, and they weld Mr. Miracle, who's in the dumpster. They weld that thing shut. Then they roll the dumpster to the edge of a dock, and they throw him into the Metropolis River here. So it kind of looks like Mr. Miracle, his search could have ended prematurely. However, the next page, we see Mr. Miracle. He's fine. He's saying they really weren't much of an issue for me, and it was kind of an easy escape for them. Again, as far as the portrayal of the crackheads in these 2 pages, John Byrne definitely captured the determination, because there is no creature more determined than a crackhead. However, these crackheads are doing a lot of work, and they're kind of not into that. So he's a little bit off there. But yeah. So anyway, we'll go back to Mr. Miracle. He's continuing his search. However, it turns out the Al Milgrom analog, he's having trouble directing this scene with Superman and Big Barda. And I suspect this is probably kind of a call out to some of the issues that Al Milgrom had to deal with when he was editing comics at DC at the time. You know, he wants more passion, he wants raw emotion, he wants something seething, and these characters just aren't giving it to him. So, but nevertheless, you know, Al's really trying here. You know, he really cares about that acting. You know, because you know that famous acting that you would find in porn films. So anyway, Al's having some trouble with Superman here, because it turns out Barda's fine. You know, she'll come with the passion, but we see Al Grossman. He's complaining about Superman, saying that this guy is kind of just a meathead, and he doesn't understand why he doesn't loosen up. Because as we know, there's no awkwardness in making porn films. Turns out that Superman is resisting sleaze. And this is something that sleaze had not anticipated. And sleaze kind of has to turn the power on more and more with Superman. And basically, this is kind of John Byrne saying to Steve Gerber, I told you, you really don't have control of these characters. So that's sort of the subtext that's going on. However, sleaze, he's determined. He's like, hey, he has crackhead determination. Hey, I control this character. I can make it do anything. And sleaze is kind of going through, I guess, a stream of consciousness here. He's talking about how he's an empath. So sleaze is someone who can like sense and feed off of people's emotions, but you know, unlike say Deanna Troi on Star Trek, he uses his powers in a negative way. So the thing is, he's looking into Superman's soul. He's going into those base emotions, and he has to defeat that that wholesomeness that Superman has. Now Superman's having a hard time here because one, Big Barda, she's a beautiful woman. And I'm sure, you know, hey, even Kryptonians get a little horny, and Superman, he's really sweating it here. So on one hand, he kind of little bit of him kind of wants to do it, but you know, it's tough overcoming this because, again, the whole awkwardness, and again he has branding to think about, so there's a lot going on with Superman here. However, it seems like sleaze is winning out at the moment. And sleaze is getting stronger, because the more he corrupts Superman, the stronger sleaze becomes. Because again, it's kind of like that feedback loop. So again, as the scene's going on, it looks like everything's okay in terms of the actual action. So the integrity of this porn film, you know, is going to be maintained by these 2 actors showing all this emotion. But Mr. Miracle, he's looking through the skylight, and he sees what's going on. Turn the page. And he sees that and he sees that she's with Superman. He doesn't know quite what's going on. I guess he hasn't used that VCR enough. But on one hand, Mr. Miracle's kind of doing the right thing in that he's kind of scoping out the layout, seeing what he's up against. But at the same time, he's kind of taking way too long. Actually, kind of breaking up this moment here. So Mr. Miracle might have some cuck in him. But however, it turns out to be too much for him, and he breaks through the skylight. And Sleaze is surprised by this. He wasn't expecting this type of entrance. The two figures, Superman and Big Barda, they're still in their embrace. I'm going to take a quick look at this one ad. It's from Mile High Comics, which actually is still around. And this is kind of one of their ads. They had running ads for years. I think at this point they were trying to sell, kind of overstock. This is probably overstock they probably had way too many issues of. I think at the time, 1987, I would not have found many of these issues desirable. Let's see. Yeah, and the next page is just a continuation of the ad. So anyway, go back to the story. Mr. Miracle, he confronts Sleaze directly. And the two are kind of having it out. It turns out that army of homeless people was actually organized by Sleaze. So he was sort of using his empathic abilities to control people. So he thought that they would be enough to handle Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle said, "Dude, you gotta be kidding me." And we kind of get like a quick little summary of how Mr. Miracle got out of the dumpster. So anyway, Sleaze is kind of impressed. However, he feels that his mental powers will, carry him for the day. Mr. Miracle informs him, "Listen, it's a waste of time. When I was on Apocalypse, I was trained to resist any type of mind control other than Darkseid's. So anything other than Darkseid is considered like, something just for them to overcome with ease." However, Sleaze, he just wants to run away. He sees that he's defeated, but he doesn't want to, he's not going to surrender at this time. And then Mr. Miracle, he's hit by kind of this face hugger type of creature. So he can't go after Sleaze at the moment because he has to kind of deal with this face hugger here. I think John Byrne was a fan of the Alien movies, because I do recall seeing other such creatures in his books. But it turns out that he's having difficulty with this creature. However, it turns out that Big Barda, who has broken out of that spell that Sleaze had her under, she can take care of the face hugger. However, she has to be very careful. She's familiar with this creature, and she knows that there's really only one weak spot, and that it's going to be difficult for her to reach it. So she kind of needs all the concentration she can muster, and she does, and she murks it. So Big Barda, she did the heroics that Mr. Miracle couldn't do. So again, that was just John Byrne kicking Jack Kirby, saying, "Yeah, you got to get your wife to rescue you." Mr. Miracle, he looks like he's about to slug Grossman here, but he doesn't do it. And both Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, they're wondering where Superman is at the moment, because apparently they were kind of distracted, these two, so they didn't notice what happened to Superman. However, it turns out that Superman also, the spell that Sleaze had under him was broken, and he's looking through the sewer system for any signs of Sleaze. Well, I guess, yeah, if you're looking for Sleaze, you go into a sewer. And Superman hears something, and it turns out that it's Sleaze. And it turns out that the reason that Sleaze was able to take control of Superman was that when Sleaze took control of Big Barda, He also got control of her Mega Rod. This is a weapon that she would employ. This is back when she was on Apoplex. So this is like a Darkseid designed weapon. And apparently it was enough to knock out Superman, because one of the things that John Byrne did when he rebooted the character is that he depowered Superman to make his adventures more relatable and also more consistent. Superman, he's about to approach Sleaze here, and Superman's just saying, hey, the jig's up. However, Sleaze has one escape, in that he lights a match. And because of where they are, obviously in the sewer system and all that concentrated gas and such, there's a large explosion. And the explosion, while it doesn't hurt Superman, nevertheless, it kind of does knock him on his ass. So he's impressed. So he was impressed by what happened here. And take a look at one of the other ads. It's for East Coast Comics, and some of the comics that you can buy from them, mail order, and some of the prices. Again, none of these issues would have been too appealing to me at the time. Okay, so we kind of have the wrap up here. And turns out Superman, Big Barda, Mr. Miracle, and Grossman, they're kind of just wrapping up what had happened. Superman is explaining to Mr. Miracle and Big Barda that Sleaze had struck the match, and he doesn't know what happened. He says that there was a huge blast. I was involved. The manhole covers all over Suicide Slum, they were blown off. So they actually believe that he basically murked himself. And Mr. Miracles is thinking that Darkseid will probably be pleased by this event. Even though Sleaze was providing some really good porn for Darkseid, he's kind of happy this guy is gone. It turns out that Sleaze was one of Darkseid's most important henchmen. And remember, at one time, Steve Gerber was probably the top writer in comics at the time. But when Sleaze fell out of favor, Darkseid just didn't kind of want this guy around. And they're kind of saying that basically Darkseid didn't want to get his hands soiled dealing with Sleaze directly. So he kind of manipulated these three into murking Sleaze for him. So that's basically what Mr. Miracle's trying to say. And then Big Barda is asking a question that Superman doesn't really want to answer. It happened in the previous issue, which I had not read. So I'm not going to speculate on that. And now it leaves this awkward moment between Superman and Big Barda, because they might very well have, shall we say, done the nasty.
I want to do the nasty.
With each other. However, Big Barda kind of just wants to forget about the entire thing. I love this look on Mr. Miracle's face, because he looks like a helpless cuck. He's listening to this conversation between these two, talking about this very intimate moment they may have had. And just Mr. Miracle is just totally dickless at this point. I mean, again, John Byrne was really mean to Jack Kirby here. And the heroes go off on their way. And it turns out there's kind of an epilogue here where I don't know honestly what's happening. It looks like there's a clinic, and it was something with some of these patients. I think what happened was that Sleaze's powers of empathy was somehow affecting these older people, and that was providing them with kind of a life force. And now that life force, Sleaze is gone, Clark was expecting these old people to die, but apparently they're still alive. So that's something that John Byrne might have touched upon. I didn't read the following issue either. Okay, so I'm gonna take a look at the letters. I don't think I'm gonna look at any specific letters. Everything seems to be positive. They're talking about Action Comics issue number 589. This issue had the Green Lantern Corps. And I think the fans, for the most part, liked John Byrne's direction. Because I think when John Byrne was given the assignment of rebooting Superman, he was also allowed to basically reboot the rest of the DC universe. And whenever any DC characters interacted with Superman, John Byrne was kind of in charge of giving the definitive word on how editorial wanted the characters to be portrayed. So anyway, that's it. That is my review of Action Comics number 593, and I hope to have more reviews up soon. Bye.